Shabbat Shalom. So I want to share with you some texts. I mean, I have kind of like a modular Drasha. I have, different texts, and I can, depending on how quickly or slowly I'm going, I can share more of them or fewer of them. But I want to start off with the classic Talmudic text on the description of Hanukkah, which starts off with the question in Aramaic, my Hanukkah, which means, what is Hanukkah? And you might think that, they would know what Hanukkah is, but in fact, they start by asking that question. But before I get into that text, I want to point out that this discussion of Hanukkah is found in Tractate Shabbat, okay? And on occasion when I have to explain what the Talmud is, and I explain that it is a kind of a stream of consciousness, right? And the classic example of that is that the discussion of Hanukkah is found in Tractate Shabbat. And so the question I want to ask you is, I mean, how did the discussion of Hanukkah wind up in Tractate Shabbat? Candles, exactly. Okay, so there's a discussion of what material is kosher for the Shabbat candles and what material is not kosher for the Shabbat candles. Okay, and then say, well, since we just finished discussing that, what about the Hanukkah candles, right? So what materials are kosher for the Hanukkah candles and what materials are not kosher for the Hanukkah candles? Since we're talking about Hanukkah candles, what the heck is this Hanukkah anyway? Okay, and so here's the answer that the Talmud gives. Our sages taught on the 25th of Kislev, the days of Hanukkah, they are 8. We do not eulogize on them, and we do not fast on them. Okay, so we don't give a eulogy on Hanukkah. Now, of course, realistically, if you are a conservative rabbi, you are aware that you're not supposed to give a eulogy on Hanukkah, but you're also aware that that's a bit of a hard sell, right? So, what do you do in that case? Here's what you do. You say, because today is Hanukkah, we are not allowed to give a eulogy. Were today not Hanukkah, we would say, exactly, okay? And that's how we avoid giving a eulogy on Hanukkah.
What's the logic of not giving a eulogy on Hanukkah?
Because it's a happy day. It's a happy day, and in ancient times, a eulogy was designed to make you cry a lot, okay? So, and Hanukkah is a happy day. So on a happy day, it's the same thing, like you can have a funeral on Hol Moed, not supposed to have a eulogy. You can have a funeral on Rosh Chodesh, not supposed to have a eulogy. So we follow the same. Purim also, yeah. Purim also, or more so, okay? So, no eulogy. Okay, so when the Greeks entered the temple, they polluted all the oils in the temple, and when the Hasmonean dynasty overcame and defeated them, they checked, and they found but one cruse of oil that was set in place with the seal of the high priest, but there was in it only enough to light a single day. A miracle was done with it, and they lit from it for 8 days. The following year, the sages fixed those days, making them holidays for praise and thanksgiving. Okay, so the emphasis is really, it's not on the victory of the Maccabees, right? The victory of the Maccabees is mentioned, but the emphasis is on the miracle of the oil, right? And that's why the main, the only mystery really of Hanukkah is to light the Chanukah, and why? That's called Pirsum Hanes, Pirsume Nisa in Aramaic, publicizing the miracle, all right? The miracle of the oil, right? But, so I mentioned in my update yesterday, and some of you may have read it, but there is a debate through the centuries why Hanukkah is 8 days. Okay, the logic of the debate is, all right, so there's enough oil for 1 day, but it lasts 8 days. Day 1 is not a miracle, right? Day 1 is not a miracle. You got oil for 1 day, you light it. It's lit, not a miracle. Miracle is only days 2 through 8, 7 days. So why is it 8 days, right? And here's what Rabbi David Hartman said. In considering the miracle of the cruse of oil, our rabbis asked why the holiday of Hanukkah was celebrated for 8 days rather than for 7 days. Since there was, by all accounts, sufficient oil for 1 day, only 7 of the 8 days of burning may be designated as miraculous days. Though several ingenious explanations were offered, what strikes me as being the miraculous feature of the initial day was the community's willingness to light the lamp in spite of the fact that its anticipated period of burning was short-lived. The miracle of the first day was expressed in the community's willingness to light a small cruse of oil without reasonable assurance that their efforts would be sufficient to complete the rededication of the temple. Hanukkah celebrates the miracle expressed by those who lit the lamp, and not only the miracle of the lamp's continued burning for 8 days, right? So, in other words, that's what Hartman says the miracle is not the oil, it's the community's willingness to light the lamp, even with the realization that it might not get there all the way. And Hartman mentions, ingenious explanations. I mean, here is the counter explanation for why it's 8 days. Okay, it's kind of new math, right? Is that no, even day 1 was miraculous because each day only 1/8 of the normal amount was consumed, right? Because otherwise, if the normal amount would have been consumed on day 1, right? But that's, it's kind of Lutnick math, you might say, right? So Hartman says the miracle is the fact that they were willing to go ahead. And then the question that's asked is, when should we take action even though our efforts may only pay off for a short period, right? In other words, and we have that, right? The perfect is sometimes the enemy of the good, right? I, as an individual, cannot solve the problem entirely. Therefore, why should I even bother, right? But I can do my part, right? So now I want to go. it's late. I want to go one. What?
Rabbi, I was just thinking about a comparison to, you once talked about standing at the edge of the Red Sea and who is going to put their foot in, and the belief that in fact this impossible thing, somehow or another, we will be able to be delivered and get to the other side. And I wonder whether part of the miracle is in lighting that oil, in many ways, a faith and anticipation that perhaps it will last longer than it appears.
Right, exactly. That faith, that is anticipation. Like, I might as well try. Right? I might as well try. Yeah, indeed.
Well, it's really off the wall, but isn't it in itself a miracle that they can be found the first vial or whatever you want to call it container?
Maybe, but that's not, I don't think that's what.
I know that's not what.
That's not the focus, right? But the point is that, exactly that willingness to at least do something, right? I mean, not to really toot my own horn excessively, but I have been a volunteer to go with people for their ICE check-ins and their days at immigration court and stuff like that. Okay, I'm not a lawyer, I'm not a translator, I can Spanish a little bit, right? But that's not the point. The point is simply to be there as a witness, and it's almost a pastoral thing, to provide comfort and courage to people who are faithful. And can I solve the problem of immigration? No. Right? Right? This problem is bigger than my ability to solve or the ability of any one of us to solve, right? But just because I can't solve the entire problem, but I can be helpful to one individual, right? I can be helpful to one individual, and I think that's the same kind of thing that that Hartman was talking about, right? And then so we have from Rabbi Laura Geller, I quoted this yesterday, so I'm not going to read the whole thing, right? But similar, right? The miracle, she says, that they took the chance, a risk, a leap of faith. What is the real miracle of Hanukkah? The miracle of human courage that empowers us to take risks for the future, even in our imperfect, uncertain world. It is the courage, even in the darkest of times, to create our own light. Right? And so the miracle is the courage. And I have to say, we have a tremendous courage deficit in this country, right? We just do, and I don't even have to point fingers. I don't have to point fingers because you all know what I'm talking about, right? We have 534, or I don't know, not 500, but 218 and 53.
A lot.
271 people. I mean, talk about miracles. There are 271 people walking around on Capitol Hill without backbones. I mean, that's really a miracle, to be able to walk around without a backbone, right? But it's happening. So we have miracles in our era too. But so I want to share something from. I mean, right, it's not a Rabbi Aaron Drasha without something from Rabbi Jonathan Sachs, right? So here's what he says, and actually the last part is actually something that's fairly well known, but this is the fuller context. The symbol of Hanukkah is the menorah we light for 8 days in memory of the temple candelabrum purified and rededicated by the Maccabees all those centuries ago. Faith is like a flame. Properly tended, it gives light and warmth, but let loose, it can burn and destroy. Right? Faith, we saw that in Sydney on Sunday, right? A faith that, not our faith, right? That led to tremendous destruction because it got out of control, right? So here's what Rabbi Stack says. We need in the 21st century a global Hanukkah, a festival of freedom for all the world's faiths. For though my faith is not yours, and your faith is not mine, if we are each free to light our own flame, together we can banish some of the darkness of the world, right? And that's what we need, right? You wouldn't call it global Hanukkah, but for the leaders of the world's religions to get together somehow and agree that faith is needed that makes for freedom, not that makes for death and destruction, right? Because we also see a tremendous retreat of freedom in our world today, right? And so, though my faith is not yours, your faith is not mine, if we are each free to light our own flame, together we can banish some of the darkness of the world. Shabbat Shalom.